Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison sat in the quiet communication room deep inside the mountain. The screens around him showed nothing but stars and empty space. For 3 years, he had watched these same displays, hoping to find something different, something that would prove Earth was not alone in the universe. The coffee in his cup had grown cold hours ago. Jake rubbed his tired eyes and looked at the clock on the wall. It was almost midnight. In a few minutes, Lieutenant Amy Foster would come to take his place for the night shift. Jake was ready to go home to his small apartment and try to sleep. Then something changed. A soft beep came from the main console. Jake looked up, thinking it was just another piece of space junk or a broken satellite. But the signal was different. It had a pattern. It repeated every few seconds, like someone was trying to send a message. Jake's heart started beating faster. He had been trained for this moment, but he never thought it would really happen. His hands moved quickly over the controls, trying to get a better signal. The beeping got louder and clearer. "Computer, record all incoming data," Jake said. His voice was steady, but inside he felt excited and scared at the same time. The pattern was not random. Jake could see numbers that he recognized. They were the same numbers that appeared everywhere in science and math. Someone was using these numbers to say, "We are intelligent beings." Jake picked up the red phone that connected directly to Admiral Frank Torres. The phone rang twice before the Admiral answered. "This better be important, Morrison," Admiral Torres said. His voice was rough with sleep. "Sir, I think you need to come down here right away," Jake said. "We're getting a signal from deep space. It's not natural, sir. Someone is trying to talk to us." There was silence on the phone for a moment. Then Admiral Torres spoke again, and now he sounded completely awake. "I'll be there in 10 minutes. Don't touch anything else. And Morrison, call Dr. Lisa Bennett. Tell her to get down here as fast as she can." Jake hung up the phone and immediately called Dr. Bennett. She was the best language expert on Earth, and if anyone could understand an alien message, it would be her. Dr. Bennett arrived first, still wearing her pajamas under a long coat. Her gray hair was messy, but her eyes were bright and focused. She looked at the displays and listened to the signal. "My God," she whispered, "this is really happening." Admiral Torres came into the room wearing his full uniform. He was a tall man with short gray hair and serious eyes. He had been in charge of Earth's space defense for 15 years. He looked at the screens and listened to the repeating signal. "How long has this been coming in?" he asked. "About 20 minutes, sir," Jake replied. "The signal is weak, but it's definitely artificial. Look at these numbers." Dr. Bennett was already working at another computer. Her fingers moved quickly as she tried to understand the message. "The mathematical constants are universal," she said. "Any intelligent species would know these numbers. They're using them to prove they can think and reason." More officers started arriving at the communication center. News of the signal was spreading through the underground base. Everyone wanted to see history being made. "Can you decode the rest of the message?" Admiral Torres asked Dr. Bennett. She nodded, still typing. "It's going to take time, but yes. They're using a very clever system. Once I understand how they encode their language, I should be able to translate it." Hours passed. Jake brought coffee and food for everyone who was working. Dr. Bennett worked without stopping, sometimes talking to herself as she tried different ways to understand the alien language. As the sun came up outside the mountain, Dr. Bennett suddenly stopped typing. She stared at her screen with wide eyes. "Admiral," she said quietly, "you need to see this." Everyone gathered around her computer. On the screen were words in English, translated from the alien message. "Greetings to any who receive this message. We are the Kepler Coalition, an alliance of 7 intelligent species. We have been at war for 200 years with an enemy we call the Swarm. Our worlds are dying. Our people are being destroyed. We do not have much time left." Dr. Bennett continued reading. "The Swarm moves from star to star, destroying everything in their path. They learn from every battle and become stronger. We have tried to fight them, but we are losing. Soon they will finish with our worlds and look for new ones to attack. The room was completely silent, except for Dr. Bennett's voice. We are sending this message to any species that might be able to help us. The swarm follows a pattern. They always move toward the center of the galaxy, taking every world they find. According to our calculations, your star system will be next on their path. Admiral Torres felt cold fear in his stomach. Keep reading, he said. We know this is a lot to ask. We know you do not know us. But if you have ships that can travel between stars, please help us. Together we might be able to stop the swarm. Alone, we will all die. Time is running out. Please respond if you can. Help. The message ended there, but the signal kept repeating. Dr. Bennett looked up at Admiral Torres. Sir, based on the signal delay, this message was sent from about 850 light-years away. If they're right about the swarm's pattern, and if the swarm moves as fast as they seem to think, ... How long do we have? Admiral Torres asked. Maybe 50 years, maybe less. Admiral Torres stood up straight. For 30 years, Earth had been building a fleet of warships, just in case they ever found hostile aliens. Now it looked like that day had come. Morrison, he said, send a response. Tell them Earth received their message, and that we're coming to help. Jake started typing the response message. As he worked, Admiral Torres walked to the window that looked out over the valley below. Somewhere up in the dark sky, an alien species was fighting for their lives, and soon Earth would join that fight. The age of peace was over. The age of war among the stars was about to begin. Captain Ryan Clark stood on the bridge of the End's Defiance, watching thousands of workers move around his ship like busy ants. The massive warship floated in Earth's largest orbital shipyard, high above the blue planet. Welding sparks lit up the darkness as teams worked day and night to get the ship ready for war. Ryan had commanded the Defiance for 3 years, but it had never left Earth's solar system. The ship was built for fighting, with thick armor and powerful weapons. Now, it would finally do what it was made for. Captain, Admiral Torres is calling for you, said Lieutenant Don Roberts from the communication station. Ryan walked to his private office behind the bridge and activated the video screen. Admiral Torres appeared, looking tired but determined. Ryan, how soon can you be ready to leave? The Admiral asked. The engineers say 2 more weeks, sir. We're installing the new nuclear missiles and upgrading the shields. Commander Maria Santos is working her people 24 hours a day. Admiral Torres nodded. 2 weeks is too long. I need you ready in 1 week. The Coalition sent another message. The swarm destroyed 2 more of their worlds. We can't wait. Ryan felt his stomach tighten. Yes, sir. We'll be ready. Good. Colonel Kate Phillips will be bringing her Marines aboard tomorrow. Make sure they have everything they need. The screen went dark. Ryan looked out the window at Earth below. His wife and 2 children were down there, safe for now. But if the Coalition was right, the swarm would come for Earth next. This mission was not just about helping aliens. It was about protecting his family. Commander Maria Santos knocked on his door. She was a small woman with dark hair and oil stains on her uniform, but she was the best engineer in the fleet. Captain, we have a problem, she said. The new missile systems are not working with our computers. The weapons keep failing, the test runs. Ryan followed her down to the engineering section. The End's Defiance was huge, with over 1,500 crew members. The ship was almost a kilometer long and packed with weapons and armor. But right now, it was also full of problems. Show me, Ryan said. Maria led him to a room full of computer screens and flashing lights. The new nuclear missiles are too smart for our old targeting system. Every time we try to fire them, the computer says there's an error. Ryan looked at The error message is on the screen. Can you fix it? Yes, but it will take time. We need to rewrite all the software. How much time? Maria looked worried. 3 weeks, maybe 4. That was too long. Ryan thought for a moment. What if we use the old targeting system, the manual one? Manual targeting. Captain, that means a human would have to aim each missile by hand. It's not very accurate. Ryan smiled. Maria, humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years. Sometimes the old ways work better than the new ways. Set up the manual system. While Maria worked on the weapons, Ryan went to meet Colonel Kate Phillips. She was waiting in the cargo bay with 200 of her best Marines. Kate was a tough woman with short blonde hair and scars on her hands from years of fighting. Captain Clark, she said, saluting. My people are ready to go. Ryan looked at the Marines. They all looked young and strong, but none of them had ever fought aliens before. Colonel, what do you know about the enemy we're going to face? Kate pulled out a tablet computer. Not much, sir. The coalition says the swarm fights like a machine. They don't seem to feel fear or pain. They just keep attacking until everything is dead. Sounds like our kind of fight, Ryan said. The Marines around them laughed. Over the next few days, more ships arrived at the orbital shipyard. Earth's entire fleet was getting ready for war. There were 47 ships in total, from huge battleships like the Defiance to small, fast destroyers. Each ship carried nuclear weapons, kinetic cannons, and electronic warfare systems. Dr. Alex Turner came aboard on the 4th day. He was a thin man with thick glasses who studied alien behavior. Ryan had never met him before, but Admiral Torres said he was important. Doctor, what can you tell me about the aliens we're going to help? Ryan asked. Dr. Turner sat down in the ship's meeting room. The coalition is made up of 7 different species. They've been working together for over 300 years. But Captain, they fight very differently than we do. What do you mean? They focus on defense, energy shields, protected bases, careful planning. They try to avoid losing any of their people. It's very different from human military thinking. Ryan thought about this. Human armies had always been willing to take heavy losses to win important battles. Sometimes the best way to save lives was to risk lives. Commander Steve Hayes joined them in the meeting room. He was Ryan's second in command, a calm man who was good at solving problems. Captain, Steve said, I've been reading the coalition's military reports. In 200 years of fighting, they've never won a major battle against the swarm. They just slow them down. Maybe they need to try something different, Ryan said. On the 6th day, Commander Santos came to Ryan with good news. Captain, the manual targeting system is working perfectly. We can fire our missiles whenever you want. Ryan tested the system himself. A human operator would look at a target through a camera and guide each missile to its destination. It was slower than computer targeting, but it was more flexible. A human could think and adapt in ways that a computer could not. Good work, Maria. What about the other ships? They're all switching to manual systems too. Admiral Torres sent the order this morning. On the 7th day, the fleet was ready. Ryan stood on his bridge and watched the other ships move into formation. Each ship was full of humans who had never been in a real space battle, but they were ready to fight for Earth and for their new alien allies. Admiral Torres appeared on the main screen. Captains, we are about to make the longest journey in human history. We're going to travel 850 light years to help people we've never met fight an enemy we don't understand. But this is what humans do. When someone calls for help, we answer. Ryan felt proud to be part of this moment. The human fleet was not the biggest or the most advanced in the galaxy, but it might be the bravest. Fleet command to all ships, Admiral Torres said. Prepare for hyperspace jump. Destination, Kepler system. Let's go save the galaxy, the stars. Outside, Ryan's window began to stretch and blur as the Defiance entered hyperspace. Behind them, Earth grew smaller and smaller until it disappeared. Ahead of them waited war, alien allies, and an enemy that had never lost a battle. But the humans were coming, and they brought with them something the galaxy had never seen before: the willingness to risk everything for people they had never met. The swarm was about to learn what happened when humans decided to fight. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system. Captain Ryan Clark looked at the main screen and felt his heart sink. The system was full of broken ships and floating debris. Explosions lit up the darkness as battles raged near several planets. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Dan Roberts. "It's a war zone." Admiral Torres's voice came over the communication system. "All ships, maintain formation and scan for coalition forces. Be ready for anything." Ryan studied the sensor readings. "Steve, what are you seeing out there?" Commander Steve Hayes looked up from his station. "Multiple ship types, Captain. Some I've never seen before. Energy readings are off the charts. And there's something else. The enemy ships, they all look exactly the same." Dr. Alex Turner stood behind Ryan, studying the alien vessels through the bridge windows. "Captain, look at those coalition ships. They're all different shapes and sizes, but the enemy ships are identical. That supports the theory that the swarm is a collective mind." A new signal came in on the communication channel. The voice was strange, like an insect trying to speak human words. "Unknown vessels. This is Coalition Fleet Commander Desitska. Please identify yourselves. This system is under attack." Admiral Torres answered. "Commander Desitska, this is Admiral Frank Torres of the Earth Defense Fleet. We received your distress signal and came to help." There was a long pause. Then the alien voice came back, sounding surprised. "Earth, you came all this way to help us. How many ships do you have?" 47 combat vessels," Admiral Torres replied. Another pause. "Admiral Torres, with respect, 47 ships will not be enough. The swarm has over 300 vessels in this system alone. You should leave while you still can." Ryan felt angry. The humans had traveled farther than any human in history to help these aliens, and now they were being told to go home. Admiral Torres's voice was calm but firm. "Commander, we didn't come this far to run away. Where do you need us?" "Follow my ship to the rally point." "But Admiral, please understand. We have been fighting the swarm for 200 years. They learn from every battle. They adapt to every tactic we use. Many brave species have tried to help us. None of them survived." The human fleet followed the coalition ships toward a large space station, hidden behind one of the system's moons. As they got closer, Ryan could see the coalition fleet clearly for the first time. The ships were amazing and strange. Some looked like they were made of living crystal that glowed with inner light. Others seemed to be grown rather than built, with smooth curves and no visible weapons. A few appeared to be made of pure energy, shifting and changing shape as they moved. "How many coalition ships are left?" Ryan asked. Lieutenant Roberts checked his sensors. "About 200, Captain. But most of them looked damaged. The space station was huge, big enough to hold all the coalition and human ships." As the Defiance docked, Ryan prepared to meet aliens for the first time in human history. Admiral Torres, Dr. Bennett, and Dr. Turner took a shuttle to the station's command center. Ryan watched them go, wishing he could be there for this historic moment. An hour later, Admiral Torres called all the human captains for a meeting over the communication system. "Captains," the Admiral said, "I've just finished talking with the coalition leaders. The situation is worse than we thought. The swarm has destroyed most of their worlds. This system is their last major stronghold." Ryan listened carefully as Admiral Torres continued. "The coalition has 7 member species. The Zephyrians look like large insects and are excellent engineers. The Helix Collective are machine beings who can repair almost anything. The Lumina are energy creatures who can manipulate electricity and radiation. There are 4 other species, each with their own special abilities. What about the swarm, sir? Asked Captain Linda Park from the destroyer, Ends Vigilant. The swarm is a collective consciousness. Individual units can't think for themselves. They're controlled by larger command ships that make all the decisions. The Coalition says the swarm learns from every battle and adapts their tactics. Dr. Turner's voice joined the conversation. Captains, I've been studying their battle records. The Coalition always fights the same way. They use energy shields to protect their ships and try to destroy the enemy from long range. When that doesn't work, they retreat and try again later. Ryan thought about this. Doctor, what happens when they try something completely different? That's the interesting part, Captain Clark. They never do try anything different. Each species has their traditional way of fighting, and they stick to it. Admiral Torres spoke again. The Coalition commanders want to plan a defensive battle. They think we should help them protect this system until they can evacuate their remaining people. With respect, sir, Ryan said, that sounds like giving up. I agree, Captain. That's why we're going to do something the Coalition has never tried. We're going to attack. Over the next 2 days, human officers met with Coalition commanders to plan their first joint operation. Ryan found himself working with a Zephyrian named Clickwing, who communicated by making different clicking sounds that Dr. Bennett's translation device turned into words. Captain Clark, Clickwing said through the translator, your Admiral Torres wants to attack the swarm directly. This is very dangerous. The swarm will learn from your tactics and use them against you. Ryan smiled. Humans have been fighting each other for thousands of years. We're very good at changing our tactics in the middle of a battle. The Coalition commanders were worried about the human plan. They had never seen weapons like nuclear missiles or kinetic cannons. The human ships had no energy shields, which seemed insane to the aliens. Dr. Turner explained human military thinking to the Coalition leaders. We don't try to avoid losses. We try to win the battle, even if it costs us ships and lives. Sometimes the best way to save people is to risk people. Commander the Siska spoke to Admiral Torres privately. Admiral, your species thinks very differently than ours. We cherish every life. We cannot accept heavy casualties for any victory. Commander, Admiral Torres replied, we cherish life too. That's why we're here. But sometimes you have to risk everything to save everything. The first joint operation was planned for the next day. The target was a small swarm fleet that was attacking a Coalition mining station. 12 human ships would work with 20 Coalition vessels. Ryan stood on his bridge, watching the mixed fleet move toward the battle. The Coalition ships stayed far away from the enemy, firing energy beams and plasma bolts. The swarm ships moved in perfect formation, their black holes absorbing most of the damage. All human ships, Admiral Torres commanded, execute Plan Alpha. The human ships suddenly accelerated straight toward the swarm fleet. The Coalition commanders sent worried messages, thinking the humans were making a mistake. Fire nuclear missiles, Ryan ordered. The Defiance launched 6 nuclear warheads directly at the largest swarm ship. The other human vessels did the same. Dozens of nuclear explosions lit up space like small suns. When the light faded, half the swarm fleet was gone. The remaining swarm ships tried to retreat, but Commander Santos had predicted this. She had programmed the human ships' electronic warfare systems to jam the swarm's communication signals. Cut off from the collective mind, the individual swarm ships became confused and helpless. The Coalition forces destroyed them easily. Commander, the Isaiska's voice came over the communication system, full of amazement. Admiral Torres, in 200 years of war, we have never won a battle that quickly. How did you do it? Admiral Torres smiled. Commander, The swarm has been fighting the same enemy for 2 centuries. They've learned how to beat you, but they've never fought humans before. They don't know what we're capable of." Ryan looked at the wreckage of the swarm ships floating in space. For the first time since the war began, the coalition had won a real victory. But this was just the beginning. The swarm would learn from this defeat. They would adapt and become more dangerous. But the humans would adapt too, and they had something the swarm could never understand: the ability to do things that made no logical sense and somehow make them work. The real war was about to begin. 3 weeks after the first victory, the combined human and coalition fleet was ready to take back the Helix homeworld. The planet had been under swarm control for 6 months, and the mechanical beings of the Helix Collective desperately wanted their home back. Captain Ryan Clark stood in the war room aboard the command station, looking at a holographic map of the Helix system. Admiral Torres pointed to the planet's surface. "Intelligence reports show the swarm has built 3 major hive mind nodes on the planet," the Admiral said. "These nodes control all swarm forces in this system. If we can destroy them, the individual swarm units will become confused and helpless." "Commander," the Ziska clicked nervously. "Admiral, the swarm has never allowed ground forces to reach their nodes before. They have strong defenses. That's why we're not going to fight our way through their defenses," Admiral Torres replied. "We're going around them." Dr. Alex Turner activated another holographic display. "The swarm expects us to attack from space, then send troops to the surface in landing ships. That's how the coalition has always fought. But humans have a different idea." Captain Nina Rodriguez from the stealth ship End's Shadow spoke up. "My ship can get close to the planet without being detected. We'll launch the assault pods directly at the nodes while the main fleet distracts the swarm forces in orbit." Ryan studied the plan. It was dangerous and crazy, exactly the kind of thing humans were good at. "What about getting our people off the planet after the mission?" "That's the beauty of it," Admiral Torres said. "We're not planning to extract them. Colonel Kate Phillips and her Marines will capture one of the nodes and use it to send a virus through the swarm's communication network. Dr. Bennett has been working on the virus with the Helix Collective." Dr. Lisa Bennett looked tired but excited. "The virus will confuse the swarm's collective consciousness. Instead of sharing information instantly, they'll receive false data. It should give us a huge advantage." The attack began at dawn, Helix time. The main fleet, led by Ryan's ship, the Defiance, engaged the swarm's orbital forces in a fierce battle. Energy beams and nuclear missiles lit up the space around the planet, while the swarm focused on the space battle. Captain Rodriguez's stealth ship slipped past their sensors. Hidden inside the ship were 30 assault pods, each carrying 10 Marines and everything they needed for the ground mission. Lieutenant Commander Pete Adams piloted one of the pods. He was a fighter pilot who had volunteered for this suicide mission. As his pod fell through the planet's atmosphere, he could see the swarm's black towers rising from the surface like metallic mountains. "All pods, this is Adams," he said into his radio. "Target the base of the towers. Remember, we only get one shot at this." The assault pods crashed into the planet's surface around the 3 hive mind nodes. The Marines poured out, carrying portable nuclear charges and electronic warfare equipment. They had 15 minutes to complete their mission before the swarm's ground forces could respond. Colonel Kate Phillips led the attack on the primary node. Her Marines fought through corridors filled with swarm drones, mechanical creatures that moved without any individual thought. The human weapons were loud and brutal compared to the silent energy weapons the coalition used. "Phillips to all teams," Kate said over the radio. "Remember, these things don't feel fear or pain. Keep shooting until they stop moving." Commander Maria Santos was with Kate's team, carrying the virus device that Dr. Bennett had built. As they fought their way deeper into the node, Maria worked to connect the device to the swarm's communication systems. "I'm in," Maria said finally. "Uploading the virus now." Above the planet, Ryan watched the space battle from the bridge of the Defiance. The swarm ships were adapting to human tactics faster than expected. They had learned to avoid the nuclear missiles and were using new electronic countermeasures. "Captain," Lieutenant Dan Roberts called out, "the swarm is jamming our communications with the ground teams. I can't reach Colonel Phillips." Ryan made a quick decision. "Take us into the atmosphere. We'll provide close air support for the Marines." Commander Steve Hayes looked worried. "Captain, the Defiance wasn't designed for atmospheric flight. We could lose the ship, then we'll lose it, helping our people," Ryan replied. The massive battleship dove toward the planet's surface, its hull glowing red-hot from atmospheric friction. The swarm's ground-based weapons opened fire, but the Defiance's thick armor protected it from the worst damage. On the surface, Colonel Phillips and her Marines were surrounded by hundreds of swarm drones. They had completed their mission, but now they were trapped inside the node with no way out. "This is Phillips," Kate said into her radio, hoping someone could hear her. "Mission accomplished. Virus is active. We could use some help down here." Suddenly, the Defiance appeared overhead, like a metal mountain falling from the sky. The ship's massive cannons opened fire, destroying swarm positions around the node. The ship's speakers crackled to life. "Phillips, this is Captain Clark. We're coming to get you." The Defiance landed hard on the planet's surface, crushing several swarm vehicles. The ship's cargo doors opened and more Marines poured out, fighting their way to the trapped teams. Meanwhile, Dr. Bennett's virus was spreading through the swarm's network. The collective consciousness began receiving false information about human ship positions and coalition fleet movements. Swarm units started attacking empty space while the real enemy ships moved freely in orbit. The swarm fleet suddenly became disorganized. Ships that had been working together perfectly began making mistakes. Some fired on their own forces. Others flew in circles, unable to decide what to do. Admiral Torres saw the opportunity immediately. "All ships, attack. Hit them while they're confused." The human and coalition fleet pressed their advantage. Nuclear missiles and energy beams tore through the disorganized swarm formation. For the first time in the war, the swarm was completely helpless. On the planet's surface, the three hive-mind nodes suddenly went dark. The swarm drones stopped moving, their connection to the collective consciousness severed. The Marines quickly gathered their wounded and retreated to the Defiance as the ship lifted off from the planet. Ryan could see swarm forces all over the surface, standing motionless like broken toys. The virus had worked better than anyone had hoped, but the victory came at a cost. The Defiance was badly damaged from its atmospheric flight. 15 Marines had been killed in the ground assault, and many more were wounded. Captain Rodriguez's stealth ship had been destroyed while covering the retreat, back in space. Admiral Torres surveyed the battlefield. The swarm fleet was destroyed, and the planet was free. But he knew this was just one system out of hundreds that the swarm controlled. Commander the Siska's voice came over the communication system, full of wonder. "Admiral Torres, your species fights like no one we have ever seen. You risk everything for victory." "That's what humans do," Admiral Torres replied. "We don't fight to avoid losing. We fight to win." Dr. Turner was already analyzing the battle data. "Admiral, the virus worked, but the swarm will adapt to it quickly. They'll probably have countermeasures within a few days. Then we'd better use those few days well," Admiral Torres said. "How many more systems can we hit before they figure out how to stop us?" Ryan looked at the liberated planet below. The Helix Collective would rebuild their world, and their people would be free again. But the war was far from over. The swarm still controlled dozens of star systems, and they were learning to fight humans. The easy victories were behind them now. The real test was coming, and Ryan wondered if human courage and craziness would be enough to win a war that had been going on for 200 years. But as he watched his crew repair their damaged ship and prepare for the next battle. Ryan felt something the Coalition had lost long ago: hope. Humans had a talent for winning fights they had no business winning. The Swarm was about to learn that. Humans didn't just fight to survive, they fought to win. 6 months after the liberation of the Helix homeworld, the combined human and Coalition fleet faced their greatest challenge. The Swarm's central command system lay ahead, protected by over 1,000 enemy ships. This was where the collective consciousness was born, and where it would die. Admiral Frank Torres stood on the bridge of his new flagship, the ENS Victory. His original ship had been destroyed 3 battles ago, along with half the human fleet. Only 24 human vessels remained, but they had learned to fight alongside their alien allies, like a single, deadly force. "Admiral," said Captain Ryan Clark over the communication system, "long-range sensors show the Swarm has adapted to all our previous tactics. They're ready for nuclear missiles, electronic warfare, and atmospheric attacks." Admiral Torres nodded grimly. "Then we'll have to try something they can't adapt to." The plan was desperate. Even by human standards, Dr. Lisa Bennett had discovered that the Swarm's central consciousness was located on a massive space station at the heart of the system. If they could destroy that station, the entire Swarm collective would collapse. But getting to the station meant fighting through the largest Swarm fleet ever assembled. Commander the Siska appeared on the main screen. The insect-like alien looked tired after months of constant warfare. "Admiral Torres, the Coalition Council has voted. We will follow your plan, even though it means sacrificing most of our remaining ships." "Daiska, you don't have to do this," Admiral Torres said. "The humans can handle the assault alone." The alien commander clicked what Dr. Bennett had learned was laughter. "Admiral, your species has taught us something important. Sometimes the only way to save everything is to risk everything. We understand now." The battle began with a massive charge by the entire Allied fleet. Human and Coalition ships flew side by side into the heart of the Swarm formation. Nuclear explosions and energy beams lit up space, like a deadly fireworks display. Captain Ryan Clark pushed the damaged Defiance to its limits, dodging between Swarm ships while his crew fired everything they had. "Maria," he called to Commander Santos in engineering, "I need everything you've got." "Captain, the engines are already past the red line," Maria replied. "One more push like this, and they'll explode." "Then make sure it's a good explosion," Ryan said with a grim smile. The Swarm ships were different now. They had learned from every human tactic and developed countermeasures. Their formations were unpredictable, their weapons more powerful, but they still fought like machines, following logical patterns. Humans didn't follow logical patterns. Lieutenant Commander Pete Adams flew his fighter straight at a Swarm battleship, firing his weapons until the last second before pulling away. It looked like a suicide run. But Pete had calculated the exact angle needed to trick the Swarm's sensors. Colonel Kate Phillips led a boarding party onto a Swarm command ship, fighting through corridors filled with mechanical defenders. Her Marines used tactics that made no sense to a collective mind, splitting up when they should stay together, attacking the strongest points instead of the weakest. Dr. Alex Turner watched the battle from the command center, analyzing Swarm behavior patterns. "Admiral," he said excitedly, "they're making mistakes. The collective consciousness is getting confused by our tactics. It's trying to adapt to too many things at once." Admiral Torres saw the opportunity. "All ships, implement Plan Omega. Target the central station." Plan Omega was the most dangerous strategy humans had ever attempted. Instead of fighting their way to the Swarm station, they would ram it with their ships. Each human vessel would become a guided missile, crashing into the station's critical systems. "Admiral," Captain Nina Rodriguez said from her rebuilt stealth ship, "you don't have to do this. My ship can get through their defenses and plant a nuclear device." "Nina, one bomb won't be enough," Admiral Torres replied. "We need to destroy the entire station, and that means multiple impacts. Ryan heard the order and felt his heart sink. The plan meant most of the human fleet would be destroyed, including his own ship. But it also meant the war would finally end. "All hands, this is Captain Clark," Ryan announced over the ship's speakers. "Prepare for ramming speed. We're going to finish this." The surviving human ships turned toward the central station and accelerated to maximum speed. The swarm fleet tried to stop them, but the human vessels were too fast and too unpredictable. Commander Santos worked frantically in engineering, overloading the Defiance's engines to give them more speed. "Captain, the containment fields are failing. We have maybe 2 minutes before the reactor explodes." "That's all we need," Ryan replied. One by one, the human ships crashed into the swarm station. Each impact caused massive explosions that tore through the station's structure. The collective consciousness, housed in the station's central core, began to panic as its physical form was destroyed. Admiral Torres watched his fleet sacrifice itself for victory. The End's victory was the last ship aimed directly at the station's power core. As his ship approached the target, Admiral Torres thought about Earth, 800 light-years away. His sacrifice would keep his home world safe. The victory struck the station's core and disappeared in a nuclear fireball. The explosion chain reacted through the station's systems, destroying the physical housing of the swarm's collective mind. Across the galaxy, every swarm ship suddenly stopped moving. The drones and mechanical soldiers that had conquered dozens of worlds stood motionless, their controlling intelligence destroyed. After 200 years of war, the swarm was finally defeated. In the aftermath, only 12 human ships survived the battle. Captain Ryan Clark found himself the senior human officer, as Admiral Torres and most of the fleet commanders had died in the final assault. Captain Clark, Commander the Siska, said over the communication system, "Your species has saved the galaxy, but the cost was terrible." Ryan looked at the wreckage floating around them. Over 3,000 human lives had been lost in the final battle. Back on Earth, families would mourn their lost sons and daughters, but those families would live, and their children would grow up in a galaxy free from the swarm. Dr. Bennett's voice came from the communication station. "Captain, I'm receiving signals from all over the galaxy. Swarm-controlled worlds are reporting that the enemy forces have shut down. The coalition worlds are free." 6 months later, Ryan stood on the observation deck of a new space station built in the liberated Helix system. Representatives from all 7 coalition species had come to sign a mutual defense treaty with Earth. The galaxy was at peace. But it was a peace that had been bought with human blood. Earth's fleet would need years to rebuild, and many families would never see their loved ones again. "Commander," the Siska approached Ryan, moving slowly on his insect legs. "Captain Clark, there is something the Coalition wants you to know. We are building a monument to honor your fallen warriors. But more than that, we are teaching our children about the humans who came from far away to save us." Ryan nodded. "What? Will you teach them that courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act despite fear? That sometimes the right thing to do is also the hardest thing to do, and that when someone calls for help, there are people in the galaxy who will answer, no matter how far they have to travel." Dr. Turner joined them at the observation window. "Captain, the Coalition has asked Earth to help them form a new galactic government. They want human representatives on the ruling council." Ryan smiled. "A year ago, we didn't even know aliens existed. Now they want us to help govern the galaxy." "That's what happens when you prove yourself in battle," Dr. Turner replied. "The Coalition species have learned that humans have something they lost during 200 years of defensive warfare: the will to win." As Ryan watched the ships of 7 different species working together to rebuild their civilization, he thought about the message that had started it all, a desperate call for help from strangers in the darkness. Humanity had answered that call and changed the galaxy forever. They had proven that courage and determination could overcome any enemy, no matter how powerful or advanced. The age of human expansion into the galaxy was just beginning, and somewhere in the vast darkness between the stars, other species would eventually learn what the swarm had learned too late. When humans receive a distress signal, they don't just send help, they bring hope. The swarm had conquered dozens of worlds by being logical, efficient, and unstoppable. But they had never faced an enemy that fought with heart instead of programming, that valued courage over calculation, and that would sacrifice everything to protect people they had never met. Humanity had found its place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as protectors, and the galaxy was safer because of it. Ryan looked out at the stars and wondered what other calls for help might be traveling through space, waiting for someone brave enough to answer. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew one thing for certain: as long as humans existed, no cry for help would go unanswered. The stars belonged to all the free peoples of the galaxy now, and humanity would make sure they stayed free.